My name is Lyke, 33 years old, and I never thought I would witness what I saw that day. I had arrived early to pick up my daughter Emily from my parents' house. As I opened the front door, the sound of harsh yelling and my little girl's sobs echoed from the kitchen. I stood frozen, my hand still on the doorknob, as I heard my mother scream, "Wash the dishes well, useless girl." My heart stopped. My 6-year-old daughter was being tormented by the people who were supposed to love her. Before I continue this painful story, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up against family for someone you love. I should probably give you some context about my life and family situation. I'm a successful financial advisor living in Boston, managing investment portfolios for high net worth clients. It's a demanding career that I've built over the past decade, allowing me to provide a comfortable life for Emily and myself. My ex-wife Jessica and I divorced 2 years ago after 7 years of marriage that gradually dissolved into resentment and constant arguments. Despite the bitter end to our relationship, we both fought hard for custody of Emily. The courts granted me primary custody after Jessica relocated to California for a job opportunity that required extensive travel. It wasn't an easy adjustment becoming a single dad, but Emily has always been my world, my priority above everything else. Her smile, her curiosity, her kind heart make every sacrifice worthwhile. My relationship with my parents, Harold and Martha, has always been complicated. They live in a suburban neighborhood about 2 hours from Boston, in a house I've been paying the mortgage on for the past 5 years. Back when the housing market crashed, they were on the verge of foreclosure. I stepped in, paid off their outstanding debt, and took over the monthly payments. It was the right thing to do, even though they never properly expressed gratitude for it. Growing up, it was clear that my younger sister Rachel was the favorite child. She was 4 years younger than me, and from the moment she was born, I became an afterthought in my parents' eyes. Rachel got the praise, the attention, the encouragement. While I was expected to be self-sufficient and independent, Lyke is strong, he can handle himself, they would say. Whenever I needed support, that pattern continued into adulthood, with my accomplishments being downplayed while Rachel's smallest achievements were celebrated. Rachel now has 2 daughters, Madison, who is 8, and Sophie, who is 10. They are treated like royalty by my parents, given everything they ask for. I never resented the girls for this. They were just kids after all, but the contrast in how they treated Emily was becoming increasingly apparent. Despite the unbalanced family dynamics, Emily adored her grandparents. She didn't see them often, maybe once every few months, but she always looked forward to visits. She would draw pictures for them, memorize little poems to recite, and talk excitedly about seeing her cousins. I never wanted to deprive her of those relationships, even if my own experiences with my family were painful. The reason Emily was staying with my parents that week was simple and unavoidable. I had an emergency business trip to Chicago for an important client whose portfolio was in trouble. The trip was supposed to last 3 days, and my regular babysitter had a family emergency of her own. With no other options available on short notice, I reluctantly called my parents. "Of course, we'll take Emily," my mother had said with unusual enthusiasm. "We hardly get to spend time with our granddaughter. Rachel is bringing the girls over too, so they can all have a little cousins reunion." During the first 2 days of my trip, I video called Emily each evening. Something felt off about those calls. Emily seemed subdued, less animated than usual. When I asked if she was having fun, she would glance to the side before answering with a quiet, "Yes, Daddy." I assumed she was just missing home, or that the excitement of being with her cousins was tiring her out. In hindsight, there were warning signs I should have paid more attention to. During our second call, I noticed Emily was wearing the same clothes as the day before. When I mentioned it casually, my mother quickly interjected that they had been playing in the garden and her other clothes were in the wash. There was also a moment when Emily started to say something about helping Grandma, but my father interrupted, steering the conversation to how well Madison and Sophie were doing in school. Rachel and I have never been close. The childhood dynamic of her being the golden child created a distance between us, that only widened in adulthood. She married young to a wealthy businessman, had her daughters, and settled into a life of luxury that our parents constantly praised. When her husband left her 3 years ago, she moved back to our hometown, just 20 minutes from our parents. Since then, they've become even more enmeshed, with my parents essentially becoming co-parents to Madison and Sophie, while Rachel pursued what she called her social influencer career. I should have known better than to leave Emily in that environment. But I truly never imagined they would treat a 6-year-old child, their own granddaughter, with such cruelty. That was about to become painfully clear. The client meetings in Chicago wrapped up a day earlier than expected. Rather than spending another night at the hotel, I decided to drive straight to my parents' house to pick up Emily. The thought of surprising her and seeing her face light up when I arrived early made the 2-hour drive feel shorter. It was around 4 in the afternoon when I pulled into the driveway of the colonial-style house where I grew up. The same house that would have been lost if not for my financial intervention. I noticed Rachel's luxury SUV parked out front, confirming that Madison and Sophie were still there as well. As I approached the front door, I realized I still had the spare key on my keychain. Rather than ringing the doorbell, I decided to let myself in quietly, thinking it would make the surprise even better for Emily. The moment I turned the key and pushed the door open, I felt the atmosphere was wrong. The television was blaring in the living room, but underneath that noise, I could hear shouting from the kitchen and the unmistakable sound of my daughter crying. My heart began to race as I silently moved through the entryway. The kitchen was at the back of the house, and as I got closer, the voices became clearer. My mother's shrill tone, my father's gruff admonishments, and worst of all, Emily's frightened sobs. I stopped at the kitchen doorway, taking in the scene before me. Emily was standing on a wooden step stool that barely gave her enough height to reach the sink. Her small hands were submerged in soapy water as she struggled to wash a large pot that was clearly too heavy for her. Tears streamed down her face, her shoulders shaking with each sob. "Wash the dishes well, useless girl," my mother was shouting, standing over Emily with her arms crossed. "If you break another plate, you'll go to bed without dinner again." My father sat at the kitchen table, his face red with impatience. "Hurry up. We don't have all day. Your cousins finished their chores hours ago because they're not lazy like you." Speaking of cousins, Madison and Sophie were leaning against the counter, giggling and pointing at Emily. Sophie had her phone out, apparently taking photos or videos of my daughter's distress. The final piece of this horrifying tableau was Rachel, visible through the kitchen doorway, lounging on the sofa in the living room, scrolling through her phone, completely unconcerned with what was happening. I remained frozen for a moment, trying to process what I was seeing. Emily's hair was unwashed and tangled. Her clothes were stained and appeared to be the same ones from our video call 2 days ago. Her cheeks were hollow, her eyes rimmed with dark circles, suggesting she hadn't been sleeping well. In contrast, Madison and Sophie were perfectly groomed, wearing matching designer outfits, their hair neatly styled with expensive-looking accessories. They looked well-fed and well-rested, standing there mocking my exhausted daughter. As I watched, Emily struggled to lift the heavy pot to rinse it. Her small arms trembled with the effort, and soapy water splashed onto her shirt. My mother immediately snapped, "Look what you did! You're making more of a mess." She grabbed Emily's arm roughly, causing my daughter to flinch in pain. That was when the trance of shock broke, and rage flooded through me. But beneath the anger was something worse, a profound, gut-wrenching sense of betrayal. These were my parents. This was my sister. These were people who were supposed to love and protect Emily, not torment her. In that moment, before anyone noticed my presence, Emily looked up and our eyes met. The relief and desperate hope that washed over her face will haunt me forever. She looked at me like I was her rescuer, her protector, the one person in the world she could trust, and I realized with sickening clarity that I had failed her by leaving her here. "Daddy," she cried out, her voice cracking with emotion. And that's when all hell broke loose. "What the hell is going on here?" I demanded, my voice cutting through the kitchen like a knife. Everyone froze. My mother's hand was still gripping Emily's arm. My father half rose from his chair. The girls stopped their giggling immediately, looking suddenly nervous. From the living room, I heard Rachel scrambling to her feet. "Lyke, my mother exclaimed, instantly releasing Emily's arm. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow. Emily tried to climb down from the stool, but her foot slipped in her haste. I lunged forward, catching her before she fell. She clung to me desperately, her small body trembling against mine, her tears soaking into my shirt. It's okay, sweetheart, I whispered, holding her tight. I'm here now. Everything's going to be okay. My father cleared his throat, his expression shifting from surprise to defensive. We were just teaching Emily some responsibility. Every child needs to learn how to do chores. Chores? I repeated incredulously. She's 6 years old. That pot is half her size. I gently set Emily down and rolled up her sleeves to examine her arms. Her hands were red and raw from the hot water and harsh soap. There were small cuts on her fingers, and I noticed a band of bruises forming where my mother had grabbed her. What happened to your hands, Emily? I asked softly, though I could clearly see the answer. Grandma said I have to wash all the dishes after every meal, she whispered, her voice barely audible. My hands hurt, Daddy. Rachel appeared in the doorway then, her expression a calculated mix of concern and indignation. You're overreacting, Lyke. Kids need to learn responsibility. My girls do their chores without complaining. I looked at Madison and Sophie, who were now hovering behind their mother. And what chores have your daughters been doing? Before Rachel could answer, Sophie piped up proudly. We get to feed the fish and water the plants. Madison nodded enthusiastically. And we put our toys away when we're done playing. The contrast was so stark it was almost laughable. My 6-year-old daughter forced to wash dishes she could barely lift, while her older cousins had the most token of responsibilities. How long has this been going on? I demanded, looking directly at my parents. My mother waved her hand dismissively. It's not a big deal, Lyke. We raised you and Rachel to be helpful around the house. I was 12 when I started doing dishes, I pointed out, not 6. And you certainly never spoke to me the way you were just speaking to Emily. You're too soft with her, my father interjected. Children need discipline and structure. Discipline? I echoed. You called her useless. You threatened to withhold food. That's not discipline. That's abuse. Rachel stepped forward, her face flushing with anger. Don't be so dramatic. This is why Emily is so sensitive she takes after you. My girls would never cry over a few dishes. I turned to Emily, lowering myself to her eye level. Sweetheart, can you tell me what else happened while you were staying here? Emily glanced fearfully at her grandparents before whispering, They made me sleep in the laundry room on a blanket because Grandma said I was too noisy. And I didn't get breakfast today because I spilled milk yesterday. The laundry room was in the basement, a cold, damp space with concrete floors and no windows. The thought of my daughter sleeping there alone made my blood boil. Where did Madison and Sophie sleep? I asked, already knowing the answer. In the guest room, Emily said. And sometimes in Grandma and Grandpa's room for sleepovers with movies and popcorn. I stood up slowly, rage building inside me, like a physical force. We're leaving. Right now. Emily, where are your things? Her things are upstairs, my mother said quickly. But Lyke, don't be hasty. We were planning a nice family dinner tonight. Save it, I snapped. I'll get her belongings myself. As I turned to leave the kitchen, my father's voice stopped me. If you take her now, you're overreacting and being disrespectful to your mother and me. We're her grandparents. We have rights too. I turned back slowly. Rights? You lost any rights when you abused my daughter. It wasn't abuse, Rachel insisted. If you can't handle honest feedback about your parenting, that's your problem. Maybe if you weren't a single father trying to do it all, you'd recognize that Emily needs a woman's influence. And there it was, the real issue bubbling to the surface. This wasn't just about making Emily do chores. This was about them believing I was an inadequate parent because I was a single father. Is that what this is about? I asked, looking from Rachel to my parents. You think I can't raise my daughter properly on my own? My mother's expression softened into something almost pitying. We worry about Emily, Lyke. A child needs a mother. If you're so busy with work that you have to leave her with us, maybe we should discuss a more permanent arrangement. The implication was clear they wanted custody of Emily. The thought was so absurd, so infuriating that I almost laughed. "That will never happen," I stated firmly. "Never." Rachel stepped closer, her voice low and threatening. "Be careful, Lyke. If you don't know how to be grateful for family help, maybe we need to reconsider the custody situation. I'm sure a judge would be interested to hear how you're always working, always traveling, leaving your daughter with whoever's available." I stared at my sister in disbelief. "Are you threatening me?" She shrugged, a small smile playing at her lips. "Just stating facts. Family courts favor stability, and 2 grandparents plus an aunt might look more stable than a workaholic single dad." In that moment, I realized this wasn't a spontaneous idea. They had been planning this, perhaps from the moment I asked them to watch Emily. They weren't just mistreating her, they were actively trying to build a case against me. I looked down at Emily, who was still clutching my hand, her eyes wide with fear. "Let's get your things, sweetheart. We're going home." As we left the kitchen, I heard my mother hiss to Rachel, "Call him." Now, I had no idea who him was, but I had a sinking feeling I was about to find out. Upstairs, as I helped Emily gather her belongings, the full extent of their mistreatment became clear. Her suitcase had been emptied, her clothes stuffed haphazardly into a corner of the small office that should have been her bedroom. The colorful pajamas and outfits I had packed were nowhere to be seen, replaced with old, ill-fitting clothes that I didn't recognize. "Where are your nice clothes, Emily?" I asked gently. "The ones we packed together?" Emily's lower lip trembled. "Grandma said they were too good for every day. She put them away and gave me these instead." She tugged at the faded t-shirt she was wearing, at least 2 sizes too small. "And where did you sleep, honey?" I continued, dreading the answer. "In the laundry room," she confirmed, her voice small. "Grandma said the guest room was for Madison and Sophie because they're older and need their beauty sleep. I had to sleep on blankets on the floor, and it was cold and scary. There were spiders. Daddy." My hands shook with rage as I folded what little clothing we could find into her suitcase. "What time did they wake you up in the mornings?" 5 o'clock, Emily whispered. "Grandma said that's when useful people wake up." I had to start cleaning before everyone else got up. I had to do the bathrooms and the kitchen floor and feed the cat. "Did you get breakfast after your chores?" I asked, noting how thin her face looked after just 3 days. Emily shook her head. "Only if I finished everything. But I never finished everything because there was always more. Yesterday I didn't finish dusting the living room before everyone woke up, so I didn't get breakfast. And then I spilled milk when I was setting the table for lunch, so I didn't get lunch either." I closed my eyes briefly, trying to control my emotions. "What about dinner last night?" "I got a little," she said. "But Sophie said I was eating too much, and Grandma took my plate away. She said, 'Greedy girls don't deserve dessert.'" Each revelation was like a knife to my heart. My daughter had been systematically starved, overworked, and emotionally tormented while I was away, believing she was in loving hands. "Were you allowed to play with Madison and Sophie?" I asked, already suspecting the answer. Emily's eyes welled with fresh tears. "They wouldn't let me. They said I was the maid, not their friend. They took turns bossing me around, and if I didn't do what they said, they would tell Grandma I was being bad." She hesitated, then added in a whisper, "They took Bunny. Daddy. They said he was their toy now." Bunny was Emily's beloved stuffed rabbit, her constant companion since she was a baby. I looked around the room frantically, but didn't see it. "Where did they put Bunny, sweetheart?" "In Sophie's bag. She said she's taking him home because I don't deserve him." I made a mental note to check Sophie's belongings before we left. No way was my daughter leaving without her cherished comfort object. As I continued gathering Emily's things, she gradually revealed more details about her 3-day ordeal. She had been forced to address Madison and Sophie as Miss, despite the fact that they were only slightly older than her. She had been made to stand in the corner for an hour because she accidentally broke a pencil while doing the writing exercises my mother had forced on her. She had been told repeatedly that I didn't really love her, that I was glad to get rid of her for a few days, and that I might decide to leave her there permanently. But the most heartbreaking revelation came when Emily rolled up her sleeve to show me a large bruise on her upper arm. "Who did this to you?" I asked, my voice tight with barely controlled fury. "Grandma pinched me really hard when I couldn't reach the top shelf to dust it," Emily explained. "She said I was being lazy on purpose." I gently touched the bruise, feeling physically ill. It was clearly the imprint of fingers, evidence of deliberate harm inflicted on my child. "Daddy," Emily said hesitantly, "Grandma and Grandpa and Aunt Rachel keep saying they're going to be my new family. They said you're too busy for me and that's why you left me here. Is that true? Are you going to leave me here forever?" Her question broke something inside me. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly as she began to sob against my chest. "No, sweetheart, never. You are my whole world, and I will never leave you. We're going home today, and you will never have to stay here again. I promise." As I held my trembling daughter, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Moments later, Rachel appeared in the doorway, her expression cold. "Mother wants to know what's taking so long," she said. "Dinner will be ready soon." "We're not staying for dinner," I replied firmly. "We're leaving as soon as I find all of Emily's things." Rachel leaned against the doorframe, studying her manicured nails with feigned nonchalance. "You know, Lyke, we've all been talking. Emily would be better off with us. You're clearly struggling as a single parent, and we can provide the stability and feminine influence she needs." I stood up slowly, positioning myself between Rachel and Emily. "Is that what this has been about? Some sick plan to take my daughter from me?" Rachel shrugged. "We've been documenting everything. The irregular hours you keep, how exhausted she looks when you drop her off, how she doesn't know basic things girls her age should know, like proper table manners or how to properly clean a bathroom. She's 6 years old," I exploded. "She shouldn't know how to properly clean a bathroom because she shouldn't be cleaning bathrooms at all." "That's your opinion," Rachel said dismissively. "But Mother raised us to be useful from an early age, and we turned out fine." I laughed bitterly. "Did we? Really? Because from where I'm standing, we turned out to be people who either abuse children or enable that abuse. Is that your definition of fine?" Rachel's composure slipped, her face flushing with anger. "You always think you're better than us, don't you? With your fancy job and your big city apartment. Well, guess what? You still need us. Emily needs us. And if you can't see that, maybe you're not fit to be her father." "Where's Bunny?" I demanded, changing the subject abruptly. Rachel blinked in confusion. "What?" "Emily's stuffed rabbit. Your daughter took it." "Where is it?" "Oh, for God's sake." Rachel rolled her eyes. "It's just a stupid toy. Sophie likes it. So what's the big deal if she keeps it? Emily should learn to share." "It's not sharing if it's taken without permission," I countered. "Now, where is it?" Rachel sighed dramatically before calling out, "Sophie, bring that rabbit up here now." A few moments later, Sophie appeared, clutching Bunny by one ear. The stuffed animal looked worse for wear, one of its button eyes hanging loose. "Give it back," I said firmly. Sophie looked to her mother, who nodded reluctantly. With obvious reluctance, Sophie thrust the rabbit toward Emily, who quickly took it and hugged it to her chest. "Happy now?" Rachel asked sarcastically. Before I could respond, I heard my father's heavy footsteps on the stairs. He appeared behind Rachel, his face set in a stern expression. "Lyke, we need to talk," he said. "Your mother is upset, and frankly, so am I. Your behavior is unacceptable." "My behavior?" I repeated incredulously. "You starved my daughter, forced her to do labor no 6-year-old should be doing, made her sleep on a concrete floor, and physically abused her. And you're upset about my behavior?" My father's face reddened. "We did no such thing. We were simply teaching her discipline and responsibility, which you clearly haven't been doing." I pulled out my phone, opened the camera app, and took several photos of Emily's bruised arm. "This isn't discipline, this is abuse, and I have documentation now." My father stepped forward menacingly. "Give me that phone." "Stay back," I warned. "Emily, stay behind me." My father stopped, his fists clenched at his sides. "You're making a big mistake, son. We're family. We look out for each other." "No," I said firmly. "Family doesn't abuse children. Family doesn't try to steal children from their parents. What you've done here is unforgivable." I turned to Emily, who was still clutching Bunny with one hand and my pant leg with the other. "Is there anything else you want to take with you, sweetheart?" She shook her head, her eyes fixed fearfully on her grandfather. "Then let's go home," I said, picking up her pathetically light suitcase with one hand and taking her small hand in my other. As we moved toward the door, Rachel blocked our path. "You can't just leave like this. We need to talk this through." "Move," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Rachel didn't budge. Number. Not until you calm down and listen to reason. I looked down at Emily, then back at Rachel. The only reason I'm not calling the police right now is because I don't want to traumatize Emily further. Now move, or I will move you myself. Something in my expression must have convinced her I was serious, because Rachel reluctantly stepped aside. As we passed, she hissed, "This isn't over." Not by a long shot. I ignored her and guided Emily down the stairs. In the living room, my mother was pacing anxiously. "Lyke, please," she began as soon as she saw us. "Let's all sit down and discuss this rationally." "There's nothing to discuss," I replied, continuing toward the front door. "Emily and I are leaving." My mother hurried after us. "We told Emily you were planning to leave her with us longer. That you called and said your trip was extended." I stopped and turned to face her. "You what?" "We thought it would be better for her to adjust to living here," my mother explained, as if this was perfectly reasonable. "Rachel and I have been talking, and with you being so busy with work, it might be better if Emily stayed with us more permanently. We could enroll her in school here, give her the stability she needs." I stared at my mother in disbelief. "You lied to my daughter and told her I was abandoning her?" "Not abandoning," my mother corrected quickly, "just recognizing that you might not be the best primary caregiver for a young girl." In that moment, I felt something break inside me, not just my relationship with my family, but my willingness to excuse or tolerate their behavior in any way. "You will never see Emily again," I said quietly. "Never." My mother's face crumpled. "You don't mean that. We're family." "Not anymore," I replied, turning away and guiding Emily to the door. As we stepped outside, I heard Emily whisper, "I want to go home, Daddy. Please take me home." I squeezed her hand gently. "That's exactly where we're going, sweetheart. Home." In the car, Emily sat quietly in her booster seat. Bunny clutched tightly to her chest. Her normally chatty, exuberant personality was subdued, her eyes downcast. I adjusted the rearview mirror to keep an eye on her as I drove, my heart breaking at how small and fragile she looked. "Are you hungry, sweetheart?" I asked, realizing she probably hadn't eaten properly in days. She nodded hesitantly. "A little." "How about we stop for your favorite burgers on the way home?" I suggested, trying to inject some normalcy and comfort into this nightmare of a day. A tiny smile appeared on her face. "With extra pickles?" "Absolutely with extra pickles," I confirmed, relieved to see even that small spark of my real daughter returning. "And a chocolate milkshake, too." As we pulled away from my parents' house, I saw them all standing on the porch, Harold, Martha, Rachel, and her daughters. My mother was gesturing frantically for me to stop, but I kept driving. In the rearview mirror, I watched as the house grew smaller and smaller until we turned a corner, and it disappeared from view. My mind was racing, cycling through everything I had learned in the past hour and all the implications. They had been systematically abusing my daughter while simultaneously plotting to take her away from me. The level of betrayal was almost incomprehensible. At the drive-thru of Emily's favorite burger place, I ordered her usual meal plus extra sides, determined to start undoing the damage of her being deprived of food. As she ate in the car, I noticed how ravenously hungry she was, confirming my fears about how little she had been fed. "Emily," I said gently when she had finished eating, "I want you to know that what happened at Grandma and Grandpa's house was wrong. The way they treated you was wrong. None of it was your fault." She looked up at me with those solemn eyes that suddenly seemed years older than 6. "They said I was bad, that I didn't do things right." "You are not bad," I said firmly. "You are a wonderful, kind, smart little girl. You're only 6 years old. You shouldn't have to clean houses or wash heavy dishes or sleep on hard floors. What they asked you to do wasn't fair or right." She was quiet for a moment, processing this. "Are you mad at Grandma and Grandpa and Aunt Rachel?" I took a deep breath, considering how to answer honestly without burdening her with my own rage. "I'm very disappointed in them. They didn't treat you with love and respect, and that makes me sad and angry. But I'm not mad at you, not even a little bit." "Will I have to go back there?" she asked, fear creeping into her voice. "No," I said firmly. "You will never have to go back there if you don't want to. I promise." Relief washed over her face, and she hugged Bunny tighter. "Good. I don't want to go back. They're mean. As we continued the drive home, I kept glancing at Emily in the mirror, watching as she gradually relaxed, the further we got from my parents' house. My phone had been buzzing constantly with calls and texts from my mother, father, and Rachel. But I ignored them all. There would be time to deal with them later. Right now, Emily needed my full attention. By the time we reached our apartment building in Boston, Emily had fallen asleep in her car seat, exhausted from the emotional ordeal. I gently carried her up to our apartment, her slight weight a painful reminder of how much she had suffered in just 3 days. After settling her in her bed with Bunny tucked beside her, I sat at the kitchen table and finally looked at my phone. 15 missed calls and over 30 text messages, all variations on the same themes. We didn't do anything wrong. You're overreacting. Think about what you're doing. Family is family, but one text from my father made my blood run cold. Don't forget who pays your parents' mortgage. Family obligations go both ways. It was a threat, plain and simple. He was reminding me that I held financial power over them by paying their mortgage, but also implying that this gave them power over me, some kind of familial obligation that I was now violating. In that moment, staring at that text message, I made my decision. I opened my banking app and navigated to the automatic payments section. The monthly mortgage payment of $3,800 was scheduled to process in 2 days. With a few taps, I canceled the automatic payment and all future payments. Next, I drafted an email to my parents' mortgage lender, explaining that I would no longer be making payments on their behalf and that any communication regarding the account should be directed solely to Harold and Martha Johnson, the actual account holders. I hit send without hesitation. Finally, I composed a text message to my father. I have canceled all mortgage payments, effective immediately. You were right. Family obligations do go both ways. You failed your obligation to treat my daughter with basic human decency. I have photos of Emily's bruises and a recording of everything that was said today. If you ever try to contact us or interfere in our lives again, I will take legal action. I hesitated before sending it. Not because I was reconsidering my decision, but because I wanted to be absolutely certain this was the right move. The house was worth approximately $500,000, with about $200,000 left on the mortgage. My parents, both retired with only Social Security and a small pension, had no way to make the $3,800 monthly payments on their own. Without my financial support, they would certainly lose the house. But then I looked toward Emily's bedroom, thinking of her sleeping there, finally safe, and I hit send without another moment's doubt. Some lines, once crossed, cannot be uncrossed. They had abused my child. They had planned to take her from me. There was no coming back from that. My phone rang almost immediately after the text was delivered. It was my father. I declined the call. It rang again, and again, and again. Finally, I turned it off, completely. Whatever they had to say, I wasn't interested in hearing it right now. The next morning, Emily slept late, her body recovering from the stress and exhaustion. When she finally wandered into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, she looked momentarily confused, as if she wasn't sure where she was. "Good morning, sweetheart," I said softly. "You're home now. Everything's okay." Relief flooded her face as she ran to me, climbing into my lap and burying her face in my chest. I held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling overwhelmingly grateful to have her back safely. "Daddy," she whispered, "I was scared you wouldn't come." "I will always come for you," I promised. Always. Over breakfast, which Emily ate with healthy enthusiasm, I gently explained that we needed to talk about what happened at Grandma and Grandpa's house. "Did they hurt you anywhere else besides your arm?" I asked carefully. Emily thought for a moment, then nodded. "Grandma pulled my hair when I dropped a spoon, and Sophie pinched me really hard when Grandma wasn't looking." "Can you show me?" Emily pulled up her shirt to reveal another bruise on her back, clearly made by fingers pinching the skin hard enough to bruise. I took more photos, documenting everything. Not because I was planning to go to the authorities necessarily, but because I needed evidence if my parents and Rachel followed through on their threats to seek custody. "Am I in trouble?" Emily asked anxiously. No, sweetheart. Not at all, I assured her. I just need to make sure we have pictures of your ouchies in case we need to show a doctor. Later that day, after Emily had settled in playing with her toys in the safety of her own room, I finally turned my phone back on. The barrage was immediate. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails, and texts. I listened to the first voicemail from my father. Lyke, you can't do this. We'll lose the house. Your mother is beside herself. Call me back immediately. The second was from my mother. How could you do this to us after everything we've done for you? We only wanted what was best for Emily. Please reconsider. The third was from Rachel, her voice cold and threatening. You've really done it now. Hope you're prepared for a custody battle. Because that's what you're getting. We have plenty of evidence that you're an unfit father, and now you're financially abusing elderly parents? Wait until the judge hears about this. I deleted the rest without listening. Then I began taking screenshots of the most threatening texts, saving them as evidence of harassment and coercion. I would need all of this if they followed through on their threats. My final act that day was to contact a family law attorney. I explained the situation in detail, including the abuse Emily had suffered and the threats my family had made regarding custody. The attorney, Catherine Morgan, listened carefully before assuring me that, given the evidence I had, there was virtually no chance a court would grant my parents or sister any form of custody. Document everything, she advised. Every bruise, every threatening message, every manipulative action. And keep Emily away from them completely. No visits, no phone calls, nothing that could be used against you or could further traumatize her. I assured her I had no intention of allowing any contact whatsoever. As for the house, she added, you are under no legal obligation to pay their mortgage in the first place. Discontinuing payments might seem harsh to outsiders, but given the circumstances, especially the abuse of your daughter, it's entirely justified. Just be prepared for them to paint you as the villain in this story. I didn't care how they painted me. All that mattered was protecting Emily. When I hung up, I felt a strange sense of calm. The decision had been made. The line had been drawn. Now we would deal with the consequences. Whatever they might be, the weeks that followed were focused entirely on Emily's recovery. I took a 2-week leave of absence from work, something I'd never done before, to be with her, constantly. My boss, understanding the gravity of the situation after I explained it, was surprisingly supportive. Family comes first, Lyke, he said. Take whatever time you need. We'll manage. I found a child psychologist, Dr. Bennett, who specialized in childhood trauma. After just 2 sessions, she confirmed what I already knew. Emily had experienced significant emotional abuse during her short stay with my parents. Children are resilient, Dr. Bennett assured me. With consistent love and support, Emily can recover from this experience. But it's important that she feels safe, expressing her feelings about what happened. Under Dr. Bennett's guidance, Emily gradually revealed more details about her time at my parents' house. Beyond the physical mistreatment, there had been a constant stream of emotional abuse. My mother had told Emily repeatedly that I didn't really want to be a father, that I was stuck with her after the divorce. My father had compared her unfavorably to Madison and Sophie at every opportunity, telling her she would never be as smart or as pretty as her cousins. Rachel had made Emily listen, while she told her daughters that Emily's mother had left because Emily was too difficult to love. Each new revelation fueled my resolve to keep Emily away from these toxic influences permanently. Dr. Bennett confirmed this was the right approach. Sometimes the healthiest thing we can do is create distance from family members who cause harm, she explained. Your primary responsibility is to Emily's well-being, not to maintaining relationships with people who have proven themselves unsafe. Meanwhile, the situation with my parents' house was unfolding exactly as expected. After missing 2 mortgage payments, they received the first warning letter from the bank. My father forwarded it to me with a single line. This is your last chance to do the right thing. I didn't respond. The third missed payment triggered formal default proceedings. My mother called me, sobbing, begging me to reconsider. We'll lose everything. She wept. 30 years in this house, all our memories, gone because you're being stubborn. Stubborn? I repeated. You abused my daughter. You conspired to take her away from me. And you think I'm being stubborn? We made mistakes, she admitted reluctantly. But we're family. Family forgives. Some things are unforgivable, I replied before hanging up. By the 2-month mark, the bank had issued a formal notice of foreclosure. The house would be auctioned in 30 days, unless the full amount in arrears was paid. That was when they showed up at my door. It was a Sunday afternoon. Emily and I were making cookies together, flour dusting the countertops, the apartment filled with the warm scent of chocolate and vanilla. The doorbell rang, startling us both. We weren't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and felt my stomach drop. Standing in the hallway were my parents and Rachel. Stay in the kitchen, sweetheart, I told Emily. Keep stirring the dough. I'll be right back. I opened the door just enough to step into the hallway, closing it firmly behind me. What are you doing here? I demanded. My mother looked terrible, pale, with dark circles under her eyes. My father seemed to have aged years in just a few months. Rachel stood slightly behind them, her expression unreadable. We need to talk, my father said, his voice lacking its usual commanding tone. About the house, there's nothing to talk about, I replied. The decision has been made. Please, Lyke, my mother pleaded. We'll be homeless. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem, I said coldly. You should have thought about the consequences before you abused my daughter. We didn't abuse her, Rachel interjected. You're blowing everything out of proportion. I turned to her. I have photos of the bruises. I have recordings of your threats. I have Emily's testimony. Don't tell me what did or didn't happen. We made mistakes, my father admitted grudgingly. We were too harsh with the girl. But to punish us by taking away our home? That's cruel, Lyke. Cruel? I laughed bitterly. You want to talk about cruelty? How about making a 6-year-old sleep on a concrete floor? How about starving her? How about telling her that her father doesn't love her? That's cruelty. We can work this out, my mother said desperately. Please, just one more chance. We'll apologize to Emily. We'll do whatever you want. I studied their faces, looking for genuine remorse. All I saw was fear of losing their home, their comfort, their status. Not one of them seemed truly sorry for what they had done to Emily. Where are Madison and Sophie? I asked Rachel suddenly. She blinked, thrown by the change of subject. With a neighbor. Why? Because they're not welcome here, I said flatly. And neither are you. I turned to go back inside, but my father grabbed my arm. You can't do this to us. We're your parents. Everything we've ever done was for you. I removed his hand from my arm. That's a lie, and we both know it. Now leave, or I'll call security. Rachel stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. You think you've won, don't you? Taking away their home, cutting us all off. But this isn't over. I've been talking to a lawyer. You used financial coercion against elderly parents. You've alienated Emily from her extended family. Courts don't look kindly on that. I met her gaze steadily. Go ahead. Take me to court. I have a report from Emily's psychologist detailing the emotional damage you caused. I have photographs of the physical abuse. I have recordings of your threats and manipulation. Do you really want all of that made public? Do you want a judge to hear how you treated a 6-year-old child? For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Rachel's face. You're bluffing, she said. But her voice lacked conviction. Try me, I challenged. Because I will do whatever it takes to protect my daughter from people like you. My mother began to cry, her shoulders shaking. Please, Lyke, we'll lose everything. You already lost everything that matters, I replied. You lost my trust. You lost your relationship with your granddaughter. The house is just a building. I turned back to my apartment door, pausing with my hand on the knob. Don't come here again. Don't call. Don't text. If you try to contact Emily or me in any way, I'll file for a restraining order. As I stepped back inside, closing the door on their stunned faces, I felt no satisfaction, no vindication, just a profound sadness. For what might have been, for the loving extended family Emily deserved but would never have. Inside, Emily was still in the kitchen, carefully dropping chocolate chips into the cookie dough one by one. She looked up as I entered, her expression anxious. Was that Grandma and Grandpa? She asked quietly. Yes, I admitted, seeing no point in lying. They wanted to talk, but I told them to leave. Emily nodded solemnly. Are they still mad at me? I knelt down beside her, gently turning her to face me. Sweetheart, listen to me. They were never mad at you. Not really. The way they treated you had nothing to do with anything you did wrong. It was about their own problems, their own bad choices. None of it was your fault. She considered this, her small brow furrowed in concentration. Will I ever have to see them again? Not unless you want to, I promised. And not until you're much older, if ever. It's your choice. Emily looked relieved. I don't want to. Not now. Maybe when I'm 10. The innocence of her response, the idea that age 10 represented some distant future of wisdom and maturity, made me smile despite everything. That's perfectly okay, I assured her. Now, how about we finish these cookies and then watch a movie? Emily's face lit up with a genuine smile, the kind I hadn't seen enough of since the incident. Can we watch Frozen again? For the 100th time? I teased gently. Absolutely. As we finished making cookies together, laughing as Emily got flour on her nose, I realized that this right here was what family should be. Not obligation, not control, not manipulation, but love, support, and safety. The next day, I received a formal notice from the bank. My parents' house would be auctioned in 3 weeks. I filed the letter away without response. That chapter of our lives was closing. It was time to focus on writing a new one. 6 months passed. The seasons changed, summer fading into fall, then winter, and finally the first hopeful buds of spring. Emily turned 7, celebrating with a party attended by her school friends, our neighbors, and my colleagues who had become like extended family to us. As for my parents and Rachel, the foreclosure had proceeded as expected. The house was auctioned off in late November, selling for slightly less than market value. From mutual acquaintances, I learned that my parents had moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. Rachel and her daughters had relocated to Minnesota, where her ex-husband's family lived, apparently hoping for financial support from that quarter. The first few months after the confrontation had been difficult. Rachel had indeed consulted with a lawyer about seeking grandparent visitation rights for my parents, but the attorney had advised against it given the evidence of abuse. There had been a few more attempts at contact, angry emails, guilt-inducing voicemails, even a letter from my father's pastor urging Christian forgiveness. I had responded to none of them. Instead, I had focused entirely on Emily and our future. After much consideration, I had enrolled her in a new school, closer to our apartment, one with an excellent support system and a school counselor who worked closely with Dr. Bennett to ensure Emily's emotional well-being. The change had been good for her. Away from the shadow of that traumatic experience, surrounded by new friends and supportive adults, Emily had flourished. Her nightmares, frequent in the first few months, had gradually subsided. Her appetite had returned to normal. Most importantly, her natural exuberance and curiosity had re-emerged, like flowers pushing through snow at winter's end. As for me, the experience had forced me to reevaluate my priorities. I had arranged a more flexible work schedule, allowing me to be home when Emily returned from school most days. I had also started attending a support group for single parents, where I found understanding and practical advice from others walking the same path. It was through that group that I met Laura, Emily's new art teacher. She had joined the support group following her divorce the previous year. Her warmth, patience, and genuine love for children had drawn me to her immediately. But I had been cautious about beginning a new relationship, worried about how it might affect Emily. I needn't have worried. Emily and Laura had bonded instantly over their shared love of art and storytelling. Laura never tried to replace Emily's mother, instead establishing her own unique relationship with my daughter based on mutual respect and common interests. By the 6-month mark, Laura had become a regular presence in our home, joining us for dinner several times a week, helping Emily with art projects, and gradually, cautiously, becoming an important part of our lives. It was during one of these evenings, as Laura and Emily worked together on a papier-mâché creation at the kitchen table, that I received the email from my mother. Unlike her previous messages, this one was brief and without accusations. We've been attending family counseling at the community center. The therapist suggested I write to acknowledge the harm we caused Emily. I understand now that what we did was wrong. Harold and I are learning about proper boundaries and respectful treatment of children. If you're ever willing to consider allowing us back into your lives, even in a very limited way, we would accept whatever conditions you set. We miss you both. Martha. I read the message several times, uncertain how to feel. Was this genuine remorse or another manipulation tactic? And even if it was genuine, did it matter? Some wounds run too deep for simple apologies to heal. I decided not to respond immediately. This wasn't just my decision to make anymore. Emily's feelings had to be the priority. That night, after Laura had gone home and Emily was tucked into bed, I sat on the edge of her mattress, Bunny positioned carefully on her pillow as always. Emily, I began gently. I have a question for you, but I want you to know that there's no right or wrong answer. It's completely up to you. She looked at me curiously. What is it, Daddy? Grandma and Grandpa have been going to special classes to learn how to be better grandparents, I explained, simplifying as much as possible. They've said they're sorry for how they treated you, and they'd like to see you again someday, if you want to. Emily's expression grew serious, her small features contemplative in a way that seemed beyond her years. After a long moment, she shook her head. Not yet, she said quietly. Maybe when I'm bigger, I nodded, respecting her decision completely. That's absolutely fine, sweetheart. You don't have to see them until you feel ready. Even if that's never. She seemed relieved that I had accepted her answer without question. What about Madison and Sophie? She asked. They were mean too. The same goes for them, I assured her. It's your choice who you want in your life. Emily thought for another moment. I think maybe Sophie and Madison didn't know better. They just did what Aunt Rachel told them to. Maybe I could see them someday. But not Aunt Rachel. Her ability to distinguish between the actions of the children and the adults, to recognize that her cousins had been following the example set by their mother, amazed me. Even at 7, Emily showed more emotional intelligence and empathy than my sister had ever demonstrated. That's very kind of you to think that way, I said, stroking her hair gently. We can talk about it again whenever you want. Emily smiled, clearly pleased that her opinion was being taken seriously. I like our family the way it is now, she said. You and me and Laura and my friends from school, and Dr. Bennett, even though I only see her once a month now. I like our family too, I agreed, my throat tight with emotion. As I turned out her light and moved to the door, Emily's voice stopped me. Daddy, I'm glad you came to get me that day. I will always come for you, Emily, I promised. Always. In the quiet living room, I drafted a response to my mother's email. I appreciate your acknowledgement and the steps you're taking. Emily isn't ready for contact now, but perhaps someday, that will be her decision to make when she's older. I wish you well with your continued therapy. It wasn't forgiveness. Exactly. Some actions may be beyond true forgiveness. But it was an acknowledgement that people can change, can learn, can do better. Whether that change came too late for our relationship was yet to be seen. The following weekend, Laura joined us for a picnic in the park. As Emily ran ahead to the playground, Laura linked her arm through mine. She seems so happy, Laura observed. You've done an amazing job with her, Lyke. I watched my daughter climb confidently up the ladder to the slide, waving at us from the top before swooshing down with a squeal of delight. I've learned that family isn't about blood, I said. It's about choice. Every day, we choose who to love, who to trust, who to welcome into our lives. Emily taught me that. Laura squeezed my arm gently. She's a wise little soul. She is, I agreed. Much wiser than I was at her age, or even a year ago. As Emily ran back to us, her face flushed with excitement, I reflected on the painful journey that had brought us here. The betrayal by my birth family had been devastating. But from those ashes, we had built something new, something stronger, healthier, more authentic. True family, I had discovered, isn't defined by obligation or shared DNA. It's defined by respect, by boundaries, by putting the well-being of those you love above your own desires or convenience. Sometimes, creating a healthy family means leaving a toxic one behind. Emily threw herself into my arms, laughing as I swung her around. Over her shoulder, I saw Laura watching us with warmth in her eyes. and I knew with certainty that we would be okay. More than okay, we would thrive. I look at Emily now, playing in our garden with the new puppy we adopted last month. Her laughter a reminder that sometimes we must lose one family to find our true family. Would you have made the same decision I did? Have you ever had to choose between toxic family relationships and your own well-being or that of your child? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose peace over painful family ties. Thank you for listening. And remember, the family you choose is often stronger than the family you're born into.